Planning your first Mediterranean cruise? Trust me, there's a lot you're going to want to know before you set sail. From choosing the right itinerary and the perfect ship, to navigating the summer heat and port-intensive days, I've got the essential tips you need to avoid rookie mistakes and make the most of your adventure. So if you're ready, I am. Let's go. Hey y'all, I'm Evan with Family at Sea, where we help you make every cruise unforgettable. Whether you're new here or a loyal subscriber, welcome. In today's video, I'm going to share with you all the things I wish we would have known before our first Mediterranean cruise. I'm going to cover things like choosing the right itinerary and the right ship, the handling jet lag, packing smart, and staying safe. Whether you're exploring Spain, Italy, Greece, or anywhere else along the Mediterranean, these tips will ensure you have the smoothest, most enjoyable cruise possible. So let's dive in and get you ready for the trip of a lifetime. Once you've identified that you'd like to do a Mediterranean cruise, the next thing you really need to decide is which itinerary is right for you. There's really three main categories of itineraries available in the Mediterranean. You've got your Western Mediterranean, Eastern Mediterranean, and then the Adriatic Sea. Each of these has its own unique flavors and experiences and attractions, and they're all incredible for their own reasons. So it's really not about telling you this is right and this is wrong. It's more about explaining to you, here's what's available to you so you can make the right decision for you. Western Mediterranean cruise itineraries are going to include stops in France, Italy, and Spain. So think Rome, Barcelona, the French Riviera. You're going to be visiting some of the most iconic cities, not just across Europe, but honestly across the entire world. These are cities that are rich in history, culture, and have world-renowned landmarks. You're going to have the beaches of the French Riviera and the art and history of Florence. The Western Mediterranean truly offers a mix of relaxation, culture, and adventure, so it's got something for everybody. And it's also the most accessible of the Mediterranean cruise itineraries, meaning it's got the largest ports with the most cruise lines and the most cruise ships. So whatever it is you're looking for in the cruise experience itself beyond the ports, you're going to be able to find in the Western Mediterranean. The drawbacks here though in the Western Med, it's going to be the most populated. There's going to be people everywhere. We were there in early June, which is before peak season, which starts later in June when the schools get out in Europe. And even then it was incredibly crowded. So that's just something to prepare yourself for, that there are going to be a lot of people. And the other thing is, because these are large cities that are vibrant and stand on their own, they don't rely entirely on the cruise industry. It also means they're going to be the most expensive. So your budget here is not going to go as far as perhaps in some other areas that are more off the beaten path, but the upside is worth it in my opinion, but it's going to be crowded and it's going to be expensive. Eastern Mediterranean itineraries may start or finish in Italy, but they're really more focused on Greece, Croatia, and some even extending into Turkey. You're going to see some truly stunning scenery throughout your cruise when you're doing the Eastern Mediterranean. From the islands of Greece to the coastline of Croatia, you're going to see some of the most beautiful and dramatic scenery, not just in Europe, but across the entire world. You're also going to have some truly rich history, from the ancient ruins of Athens to the medieval city of Dubrovnik. This is the perfect itinerary for history buffs. You're also going to have a much more laid-back atmosphere than what you're going to see in the Western Meds. Instead of those big bustling cities, you're going to have a more relaxed and laid-back pace. The drawback here is you're going to have fewer of those big cities, so if you're looking for the larger metro areas with all sorts of things to do, you may feel this is a bit too slow-paced. There's also going to be less variety of things to do. The focus here is really more about the natural beauty and the history, with fewer big cultural landmarks compared to what you're going to see in areas like Rome and Barcelona. The third and final of the major itinerary options in the Mediterranean is the Adriatic Sea. And so these are often going to again start or finish in Italy, but they're also going to be going through Croatia, Montenegro, and even Slovenia. You're going to have some really unique ports on these. You're going to have a mix of popular and also off the beaten path ports, where you're going to be able to see things like Venice and the walled city of Dubrovnik and the charming towns of Montenegro. And you're going to have just really diverse experiences. The Adriatic cruises give you a taste of both Mediterranean and Central European culture. You're going to have some really scenic cruising as well. The coastline along the Adriatic is stunning, with crystal clear waters and picturesque towns perched on cliffs that you're going to be able to see from the ship. The cons here is that you're going to have a lot less time in these major ports. Instead of being focused on these major metro areas, you're instead going to have smaller port visits, which means less time in bigger, more bustling cities. You're also going to have a much greater variability in the weather. The Adriatic can have really major weather swings that can be unpredictable at times, especially in the spring and fall, which may impact your plans. But overall, it's a great experience and you're going to love it. Guys, it really doesn't matter whether you choose the Western Med, the Eastern Med, or the Adriatic. They're all incredible for their own reasons. So if you're looking for something that's going to be more action-packed, the Western Med is probably the best option for you. If instead you're really more into history, I highly recommend considering the Eastern Mediterranean. And if you're really just looking for a laid back, sort of off the beaten path, just cruise on cruise control sort of opportunity, then the Adriatic's a really great option for you. But there's something for everybody in the Mediterranean, and I highly encourage you to really think about this to figure out what's right for you. Once you've identified the right type of itinerary for your Mediterranean cruise, the next thing you need to consider is which cruise line is going to provide the experience that it is you're looking for. If you're an American like I am, then all the brands you know and love here in the US are also going to be available in the Mediterranean. So if you're a family like we are, or somebody that's looking for more active fun with amazing shows and tons of dining options, you've got Royal Caribbean and Norwegian and Carnival. And you're also going to have some options there that we don't have here that may provide a different but equally great experience. Ones like Costa or P&O and TUI. These are going to provide those similar experiences with all sorts of fun, but with a more European flair to them. And then you've also got your premium lines that maybe are not quite as kid-friendly, but are going to be great if you're looking for a more refined or elegant experience. Lines like Celebrity and Princess and Holland America. And then if you want the absolute best of the best, and you're looking for that ultra luxury cruise, then you've got options like Explora Journeys and Oceania and Region 7 Seas or Seabourn. And honestly, no matter what it is you're looking for, there's a cruise line that's going to match your needs in the Mediterranean just like it would here in the Caribbean or Alaska. So really it's about do the research to figure out what it is you're looking for. If you're a family like we are, I recommend Royal Caribbean. MSC is another great option, but just be aware that MSC and the Mediterranean is going to provide a different experience than what we have here in the US because they are a European brand with Italian roots. So that's just something to be aware of. The MSC here is going to be different than what you're going to experience there. But you've also got Norwegian and Carnival. So guys, there's tons of great options, whether you're a family, whether you're retired and looking for something with as few kids as possible, whatever it is you're looking for, you're gonna find it. You just need to do the research and figure out what is right for you. Once you've identified the right itinerary for your Mediterranean cruise, as well as selecting a cruise line that's gonna provide the experience you're looking for, the last thing you really need to nail down here is when is the right time of year for a Mediterranean cruise. Peak season there is going to be late June through August, and during this time of year, you can expect the prices to be at their highest. It's going to be the most crowded, both on the ship and in the ports. There's going to be lots of families out since the kids are out of school this time of year, and you're also going to have pretty extreme weather with high temperatures and lots of humidity. If you've got any choice at all, I would recommend avoiding peak season, but I understand for some of you that may be all that's available. Shoulder season is, in my opinion, the best time of year to do a med cruise, and this is going to be April through early June and then September into October. During this time of year, you're still going to have nice weather, but it's not going to be quite as hot. The crowds are still going to be there, but they're not going to be quite as extreme. And the prices may still be higher than they are during the low season, but they're going to be a little bit cheaper than they are during peak season as well. Your final option here is low season, and during this time of year, you're going to have less ships and less itineraries available to you, but you're going to have the smallest crowd, so you're not going to be fighting to get through the crowds or long lines, and you're also going to have the lowest prices. The drawback here is that the temperatures are not going to be great. It's definitely going to be colder. There's going to be a lot more rain. And if you want to go to the beach, you're going to be pretty cold because that water is not going to be warm at all. But if you're cruising on a budget or if you're cruising just to get away from people, this is going to be the right time of year for you. So whether it's during peak season, shoulder season, or low season, you've got options. And with this information, you should be able to select what's right for you. Hey y'all. If this video has been helpful for you, if you'd please take a quick moment to like and subscribe, it would mean the absolute world to me as I get started on this YouTube journey. With that out of the way, let's get back to it. Now that you've booked what's going to be an amazing Mediterranean cruise, the next thing you really need to consider here are your travel arrangements. Now, odds are you've heard this advice before, but I'm going to reiterate it. Do not fly in the morning of your cruise. Once more, for those of you in the back, do not fly in the morning of your cruise. Guys, flight delays happen all the time. And when you're traveling as far as you're going to be for this Mediterranean cruise, if you're coming from the US, the last thing you want is a flight delay to be the reason you miss your cruise. It's gonna be stressful, it's gonna be expensive, and honestly, it's gonna be really sad. So don't even risk it. Make sure you fly in at least a day early, and I'm gonna be honest, I would recommend flying in at least 2 days early. For our Mediterranean cruise, we flew in 2.5 days early, so we got 2.5 incredible days in Rome. And then on the tail end, we got 2 days in Barcelona, so we could experience these amazing cities and their rich cultures and the amazing food. And it was so worth it. So guys, if you're gonna be going through the expense of flying to a foreign country and everything that comes with that, give yourself time to enjoy things, not just on the cruise, but in those departure and arrival cities as well. So there you have it. Make the right travel arrangements. Another great reason to consider getting to your destination a couple of days in advance is to give your body time to process any resulting jet lag before your cruise ever begins. Now the reality is, for the majority of us, jet lag is unavoidable, but there are some things you can do that will limit its impact as well as help you get through it as quickly as possible. And it starts at home. If you can begin to adjust your sleep schedule, even if just by an hour or two before you leave for your trip, it'll make it a little bit easier when you do get to your destination city and you're resetting it 5 or 6 hours ahead or behind, depending on which area of the world you're departing from. Another thing that's going to be really important here is to make sure that you stay hydrated. Drink plenty of fluids so that while your body is fighting to adjust to a new sleep pattern, it's not also fighting for nutrients and to stay fully hydrated. Another thing that can be really helpful is, if you can, try to sleep on the flight there, especially if you've got a red eye. Now, if you're like me, sleeping on a plane is just about impossible, and unfortunately, there's not a whole lot some of us can do about that. But for some of you, if you're able to sleep on that flight, I highly recommend it. Even if you only get 3 or 4 hours, that's going to be better than getting none at all. Now, when you do get to your destination city, stay outside, get that natural sunlight, help your body acclimate, and whatever you do, do not take a nap when you get there if you can help it at all. Try to stay up until you'd normally be going to bed in that local time zone, so that in the next morning, you're able to wake up and begin to really fully adjust to that new time zone that you're going to be in for the next week or two. No travel video like this would be complete without at least a few packing tips, and I don't want to disappoint you guys, so I've got some really good ones for you. First thing to understand is you're going to be visiting some amazing holy sites during your travel through the Mediterranean, and they've got some pretty strict dress codes. So you're going to need to make sure that your shoulders are covered and anything above the knees is covered as well. So that may mean longer shorts or even pants or long skirts, as well as bringing a shawl with you. Now, you've also got to balance out with the extreme heat you're going to be facing, so definitely wear layers, but you're going to need to make sure that you've got things to cover yourself up, or you're not going to be allowed in some of those sites. Another thing to consider here is you're going to be walking a lot. In fact, we averaged over 20,000 steps a day as we traveled through the Mediterranean, and so that means you need to bring really comfortable walking shoes. Last thing you want is to be wearing dress shoes or high heels or something like that, where your feet are going to be killing you by the end of the day, and then you've got to do it all over again tomorrow. So make sure you bring really comfortable walking shoes with plenty of padding so that your feet stay in good shape throughout your journey. Another thing that I always recommend is get a really good battery backup power supply that you can use to charge your devices. This is not only going to help you charge your phones and your other devices overnight because you may not have plugs beside your bed, but it's also going to help you through the day when you're using your phone to take all sorts of pictures and whatnot in the ports, and ensuring that your phone doesn't die midway through the day and all of a sudden you can't take pictures of this amazing thing that you're facing. So definitely get some of these. And finally, if you're like me, I recommend bring a travel size stain remover. Mackenzie has forbidden me from wearing anything that's white, and probably for good reason. But if you bring a travel size stain remover, at least when you do inevitably drop something on yourself, you can quickly and easily clean it up. So there you got it. There's some really easy and effective packing tips for your upcoming Mediterranean cruise. One of the things you may be wondering about as you plan your Mediterranean cruise is whether or not you need a passport. Now, if you're an American like I am, you may have gotten used to the fact you can do a closed loop sailing out of, say, Miami to the Caribbean with just your birth certificate and driver's license, but that's not going to work for you in the Mediterranean. You must have an active passport, and also it cannot expire within 6 months of your travel dates. If it does, you're going to need a brand new one as well. These take several months to process, so do not wait until the last second or you may be out of luck. Something else to consider here is whether or not you'll need any travel visas. As Americans, we can be spoiled when it comes to visas because we can visit many places without needing one. But the reality is laws and permits and requirements, whatever you would call it, are constantly changing. And even though you may not need one today, you may need one in the future when you go to take your cruise. So check with the cruise lines, check with the countries you'll be visiting, check on Facebook roll call groups, but make sure that you've asked to be sure you do not need a visa in advance, because if you do need one, you're going to need to do that before you leave for your cruise. When it comes to getting the most out of your Mediterranean experience, it's really important that you put a lot of advanced thought into what you're going to do at each port. In the Caribbean, you can kind of get away with just meandering off the ship and finding something once you're in the port. But that's because those are really purpose-built towns specifically for the cruise ships. But in Europe, you're gonna find that these towns have been around for thousands of years. They're not built for the cruise lines. And oftentimes the things that you're going to do that you're gonna get the most value out of are not gonna be in the port town themselves. You may have to travel by train or by Uber or by private taxi or whatever it may be, an hour or more to get to some of the locations that you're going to visit. And you can't wing it when it comes to things like that. So put some advanced thought into things, whether you're gonna be doing a cruise ship excursion or whether you're gonna be doing a third-party excursion or just exploring on your own, know what you're gonna do at each port in advance. We had the great fortune to really come across and uncover some absolutely amazing tours that we did on our Mediterranean cruise. We used sites like With Locals. We found a great tour operator called Roman Limo that was available in most of Italy. These were some of the best tours we've ever been on in all the cruises and all the places we've ever visited. But we never would have found them had we winged it and waited to the last second. So I highly recommend put in the work. I'm gonna leave some information for you guys in the description below that should help you out. But if you've got any questions about specific things, let me know in the comments and I'm happy to help as always. One of the other things I strongly recommend you take advantage of while planning your Mediterranean cruise is Google Maps, and specifically two different features within Google Maps. The first of these is the ability to download maps for offline use. What this means is when you're visiting these foreign countries, even if you don't have a data connection, you'll still be able to use GPS to navigate your way around things because you downloaded those maps in advance. And the second here is to use their trip planning tool to be able to drop pins at all the different locations you'd like to visit while you're traveling. So again, without a data connection, you'll be able to navigate yourself around in a custom planned itinerary from point to point, whether you've got data or not. Speaking of data, one of the things you really need to consider in advance is how much connectivity are you going to need on your trip? Now, if you're one of those people that says, hey, I'm gonna completely disconnect from the world the entire vacation, that's amazing, I commend you, and I'll be honest, I'm a little bit jealous. The reality is, for us, that wasn't a good option. So we needed to figure out what was a good solution for us. On the ship, of course, you can get Wi-Fi. It's pretty expensive, but you can get Wi-Fi, or you can rely on using Wi-Fi in ports at places like coffee shops, but then you're having to waste your time in ports going to places with Wi-Fi. So what we ended up doing, we did pay for the Wi-Fi on the ship, but while we were in port, what I thought I was gonna do is I was just gonna pay our cell phone provider $10 a day for connectivity. Now, Mackenzie, my wife and I, there's two of us, so that's $20 a day. But then I thought about the last time we traveled internationally, and I remembered it didn't actually end up being $10 a day per person because it was $10, and then a few hours later, it was another $10, and then a couple hours later, it was another $10. So now it was $40, $50, $60 for the day. And so I started to research what are some better options out there. And I discovered these things called eSIMs, which all your phones have those little physical SIM cards that basically tell your phone how to connect to your cell phone's network. And those work great when you're here in the United States. But when you travel abroad, you can get a physical SIM card that you're gonna replace that with, but then it can really become an issue because if you lose your main SIM card, you're gonna have to go track one down when you get back or whatever. But an eSIM card is basically just a digital version of the same thing that makes it super simple for you to get connectivity while you're traveling abroad. I did a bunch of different research on different eSIM providers, and the one that I decided on was a company called Olafly. Now, I'm really happy to share that they actually had amazing service. We had connectivity everywhere we went. It was fast because they were using some of the best networks in all the different countries we visited, and it was cheap. It was only like $30 or $40 for 10 days and maybe $50 for 14 days. It was really, really affordable, and it was simple. So if you're like me, you can't fully disconnect and you want an option that's gonna be not super expensive and also easy to set up, I highly recommend Olafly, and I'll put a link for them down in the description below so you can check it out for yourself. But I really recommend it. I had a great experience with them, and I think you will as well. As your cruise gets closer and you start to think about more tactical things, one of the things you're inevitably gonna have to think about is, what do you do about money? Well, on the cruise ship, if you're on Celebrity like we were, they may still be using US dollars, but when you're actually in the ports, they're gonna be using the euros, as the countries you're likely to visit are all going to be part of the EU. So, what is the best way to go about exchanging your money? Well, what I can definitely say you should not do is exchange it at one of the exchange places at an airport or one of the tourist areas where they do it, because the exchange rates are terrible. They have crazy fees. You can end up paying 20 or 30% just exchanging your money. There's a couple of options you have here. If you're forward thinking enough to get ahead of this, you can go to your bank, and even if it's not a big bank where they have euros in the bank, you can still bring them US cash and they'll basically mail it out, and a few days later they'll give you euros based on that day's exchange rates. And the fees there are generally minimal, and if it's a good bank, they may not charge you anything at all. And then the other way to do it is to find a good ATM machine. And I say a good ATM machine. So when we were in Rome at the beginning of our cruise, I wanted to get some euros. And the issue I ran into is the first 3 of the ATM machines I went to all had crazy exchange rates and fees. And again, it wasn't quite as bad as doing it at the airport, but it really wasn't much better. But fortunately, I went to a 4th ATM, and this one happened to be no fees at all other than the standard ATM fees. So they're hard to find. I bet you if you do some research online, you could probably find where some of those are in advance. But if you don't, just make sure you really pay attention if you're using an ATM machine to get euros, that you're not paying crazy exchange fees because you have a US bank. But they are out there. We definitely, near our hotel, right in the center of Rome, found an ATM machine that exchanged things with no exchange fees at all other than the basic ATM fee. So they do exist. Of course, your bank may have their own fees. I don't know, but it's good to know that's an option. But honestly, your best bet here is to go to your bank and exchange things in advance, because they're gonna do it for little to no fee at all. While we're on the topic of money, I've got 2 more tips for you related to it. The first of these is about tipping. Here in the States, it seems like tipping is built into the culture of everything we do, and 20% is more or less the standard for many of the services we receive. In Europe, it's not built into the culture at the same level, but it's still a polite and kind thing to do when you do receive great service. However, instead of tipping 20% there, 10% is more the sign of, hey, I appreciate the great service you gave me. And the second thing related to money is related to the bathrooms. In Europe, a lot of the public bathrooms are not free. You can't just walk in somewhere and use the restroom. So you either need to have some coins with you to pay for it, or if you're going into like a coffee shop or something like that, buy something, and in exchange for making a purchase, you'll then be allowed to use the bathroom. But if you just walk in somewhere expecting to be able to use a bathroom, you're gonna get some dirty looks, and you may even get thrown out, or at least told no. Maybe not thrown out. I hope not thrown out. It may not be one of the most fun things to think about while you're on vacation, but it certainly doesn't hurt to take some precautions to keep your valuables safe while you're out in public. When I'm traveling, I wear shorts that have a hidden zipper where I can store things like my wallet. That way, if somebody does want to try to target me as a pickpocket, it's at least going to be more challenging for them. And ladies, on a similar note, I highly recommend bringing a purse that zippers shut. It doesn't mean that they're not going to ever attempt something, but if yours is zippered shut and somebody else isn't, they're probably going to go after the easier target. All right, y'all, we are nearly there, and you are well on your way to planning the perfect Mediterranean cruise, and I'm really excited for you. If this video has helped you at all, or if you found it entertaining, would you please do me a huge favor and like the video and subscribe to my channel down below? A lot of work goes into creating this content for you guys, and I'm super passionate about helping people like you love cruising as much as I do. And this is your way of showing YouTube that you appreciate what I do and you want to see me create more of this great content for you. Fingers crossed that's actually true. So with that said, if you please like the video and subscribe, it'd mean the world to me. So with that said, let's get back to it. So the next thing, if you watched any of my other tips videos like this, you know I'm probably gonna talk about this in just about all of them because it's so absolutely critical. And that's your mindset. Your mindset plays such an important part in whether you're going to have an amazing cruise or a really terrible cruise. If you're in like Facebook groups or on Cruise Critic or any of these places where people discuss their cruise experiences, one of the things you'll see is on the same exact cruise, one person will have an absolutely terrible time and somebody else will have an amazing time on the same exact cruise. And the biggest reason for that is mindset and their expectations for things going into things. If you're expecting an absolutely flawless experience from start to finish and nothing's gonna go wrong, then as a result, even if a little something goes wrong that shouldn't be a big deal, it may become a big deal and it can absolutely ruin your time. So go into the mindset that, hey, things aren't gonna be perfect. There's gonna be things that happen that I really wish didn't or that I wish went differently. And when those things happen, I'm gonna be okay with it and I'm gonna accept it and I'm gonna roll with things and I'm gonna find the good in the next thing. It's gonna make a huge difference in your overall experience. And the second thing is Mediterranean cruise itineraries are very port intensive. Like I said earlier, you're gonna walk over 20,000 steps a day if you're like we were, and it's gonna be amazing, but gosh, you're gonna get tired. And you need to allow yourself time to just decompress, relax, let go, and just be one with the ship or the sea or whatever, but not be on the go the entire time for, a 7, a 9, 11-day cruise, whatever it's going to be. So my recommendation, find maybe 1 or 2 ports that maybe you're okay with staying on the ship for part or maybe even the whole day. I know when you're on a cruise, you want to experience everything, right? As the kids would say, FOMO, or they used to say, they're probably on to something else now, but you've got that fear of missing out. I know what it's like. You don't want to miss out. But if you go into the mindset like, hey, this isn't going to be a once-in-a-lifetime thing. I'm going to have another opportunity to be here, and it's more important that I make the most of my time here than it is that I try to squeeze absolutely every single thing in. If you do that and you give yourself time to breathe, it's really going to make a positive impact on your overall experience. So I highly recommend give yourself an extra day or 2 while you're on your cruise to just stay on the ship and just relax. Net you a much better experience as a result. All right, guys, so that's it. We're down to the final tip. Can you believe it? I know it's been a long time coming. So if you are still there, I thank you guys. I really do hope you're getting a ton of value out of it. And I'm not just saying that to try and get you to like the video. I really, really hope this is helping. So my last tip is, guys, be prepared. Be prepared that you may love this cruise. Be prepared that you may want to book another cruise. Maybe even another Mediterranean cruise, or maybe a Caribbean cruise, or Alaska, or the Norwegian fjords. But be prepared that you may have an amazing time and you want to do this again. Well, if that's the case and that's where you find yourself, I highly recommend you take advantage of different cruise lines call it different things, but basically it's a desk, the next cruise desk or the future cruise desk, where you can book your next cruise on the ship. You don't actually have to pick a specific itinerary that you're going to be committing to, but you're giving them a deposit toward it. And in exchange for that deposit, they're going to give you onboard credit as a thank you for saying, hey, we appreciate that you made this commitment on board. So in exchange for that, here's some free money when you do take that next cruise. Guys, if you're going to take another cruise anyways, why wouldn't you do that, right? It is a great way to just make sure that 1, you're taking action toward taking your next cruise, and 2, you're going to save some money in the process. And if you like saving money, guys, I made a video with some amazing money hacks that are going to save you money on your next cruise. These are things that some of the cruise lines probably wish you didn't even know about, because it's going to mean more money in your pocket and less money in theirs. But guys, click the link above and watch that video and tell me if you learned something in there that really helps you save some money on your next cruise. So that's it, y'all. I hope you have an amazing journey. I hope you enjoy planning that journey as much perhaps as the journey itself, or at least close to it, because there's a lot of excitement that comes with the anticipation of that next adventure. So guys, wherever you go, whatever you end up doing, smooth seas, happy sails, bon voyage.